let's see what the Star Wars Jedi Survivor digital Foundry looked like. I did not see this. I've not checked it out, but I heard some people were saying that the game is running at like a shockingly low resolution by default, which would be very, very interesting. So let's see what this is like.
Fallen Order was a very interesting game, if not an entirely successful one, combining the exploration and puzzle solving of Metroid games with combat mechanics inspired by Dark Souls, but the game itself was saddled with technical issues, particularly at launch, that dampened the experience.
I played it back in the day on the Xbox One X, and that thing ran like hot dog garbage for me. Like, it was rough. Isn't there 2 Arcane studios? Yeah, there's Arcane Lyon and there's Arcane Austin in Texas. Arcane Austin are the ones that did Prey, and then they just did Redfall. And then Lyon did like Dishonored 1 and 2, and then they did Deathloop. AV1 setting is only available on AMD RDNA 2 GPUs outside of Navi 24 based 6500 XT and NVIDIA GeForce 30 and 40 series GPUs, Intel XZ and Arc GPUs. Older hardware does not have it. Correct. And also like Apple iPhones don't have it. iPads I don't think have it. MacBooks should. I'm pretty sure the Apple Silicon MacBooks and a lot of Android phones I believe have it. But it's the new standard. So in like 2-3 years, everything you buy is going to have AV1 decoding. Encoding is a different thing. It's becoming more standard. But a lot of devices can decode it, though they can't encode it.
Brisk 3.5 years later, and Respawn has delivered its sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This is a boundary-pushing current-gen exclusive built on Unreal Engine 4 with ray tracing and advanced image reconstruction. So does Jedi Survivor rival the best-looking current-gen games, and has it repeated some of the technical sins of its predecessor?
It's just such a bummer because when the game is looking good and running well, it's amazing.
It's clear that you're looking at something special. The game opens with a truly stunning real-time cutscene. The characters are highly detailed, but the lighting, which shows impressive detail and true-to-life fidelity, is the real star of the show. Just look at how consistent and correct the material properties across the characters are. These findings apply to the PS5 and Series X releases, and not quite as much to the Series S, which we'll be covering separately at the end of this video. That basically sets the tone for the entire game's visual presentation. Jedi Survivor's lighting is super
Look at the texture quality. I don't know. I don't think is this running on PS5? Because I don't remember it looking this good. I guess to be fair, we should run it in real time instead of sped up, because then we'll see the frame rates reflected more accurately. But yeah, the texture quality is amazing.
Consistent and rich in a way that's tough to achieve with conventional rasterized lighting techniques. Here we seem to be looking at a sort of RTGI system, probably a probe-based ray-traced global illumination that seems to become more dense around the player character. Though without explicit confirmation from the developer, it's not 100% clear. If we look at the PC version, we can separate out the ray-traced and non-ray-traced iterations of the game's lighting. Across the environment, the ray-traced lighting provides a richer, more realistic portrayal of light relative to the baked GI solution that otherwise seems to be in use. Look at the sun.
Honestly,
here,
the baked one looks really good too.
Gives the game a properly placed light highlight, while the non-RT version just has a faint diffuse glow, and there's a bit of light leak under the table in the non-RT view as well. The improvements here ranged from minor to quite dramatic, but the lighting and fine geometry is much more consistent with RT enabled. And if we toggle RT on while playing, we can clearly see the RT lighting pop into place over multiple frames while the game is actually running. Cutscenes show much the same pattern. Some shots can look quite similar, but the RT gives the game a greater level of consistency, evening out problems in otherwise well-lit scenarios and delivering much better outcomes when the rasterized lighting fails. The lighting looks good without RT, but the game gets a substantial visual boost when you do toggle on these RT settings, which are enabled on PS5 and Series X as well. Jedi Survivor also packs another RT staple, RT reflections, but in slightly more muted form here, I would say. In most shots, the RT basically functions as a fallback when screen space information is occluded. Combining SSR and RT reflections is common, of course, but here the SSR is substantially higher quality and has much better lighting information, and it's basically overlaid over the RT reflection.
Oh, the man bun. I gotta find the man bun, dude. I want to see the side-by-sides.
Interesting as well, in my opinion.
Oh, you remember that gross mossy texture on the ground? Oh, I remember that. It looks so bad. It looks so bad. Can I turn the video up? It is up. I don't know why, but that's as loud as it goes. They really, really like he's very soft-spoken in this one.
As some of the plants in particular are real standout. The interior looks evened out somewhat, with subtler distinctions between light and dark. The lighting setup is mostly similar, but a few spots have had artistic tweaks, like the corridor to the mechanical room, which is now mostly lit from door frame mounted lights. The main character also looks more realistically grounded within these spaces.
Oh yeah, the hair. His hair was always really weird in the first one. It does look way better.
Without the gamey look that the prior game suffered from. On the whole, Jedi Survivor is definitely up there in my eyes with the best looking games of this generation so far. I think the key takeaway is that Respawn has dialed up the artwork to really take advantage of the new console hardware, while introducing select ray tracing lighting effects to make that artwork truly shine. This isn't a fully ray traced behemoth by any means. Shadows are handled using a mix of shadow maps and screen space shadows, for instance. But
screen space shadows. I think that's what we were looking at earlier in Redfall, with the like occlusion from fence posts and stuff.
The overall visual impact of the experience is very pleasing, especially in those stunning real-time cinematics. There's plenty that
the real-time cinematics are absolutely insane. Remember in that in the video I did on it where we tried it on PS5, I thought it might be like, I thought it was pre-rendered. It took me a second to be like, oh no, this is real time. It's that good. It really is. It's amazing. It's just a bummer that the resolution is so low on PS5 and other consoles, because it makes everything look so blurry. When the asset quality is super high, being sharp would really showcase it well, but man.
Resolution mode, and there is a good reason for that. The game operates using heavy upsampling courtesy of AMD's FSR2 to achieve
which sucks ass
its final rendered imagery, and that technique works much better with a higher internal resolution. For the PS5 version of the game, my colleague Tom Morgan counted results roughly in the ranges on screen for the two modes on offer. Essentially, the PS5 renders at around approximately
648p, wow,
or 720p during gameplay, depending on the visual mode, with heavy upsampling to make that imagery look good on a high-resolution display. In resolution mode, it looks like the game is upsampling to 4K, while performance mode upsamples to 1440p. Both modes do maintain the ray tracing effects, however, and there doesn't seem to be a substantial difference between them outside of resolution and some minor differences in foliage. As a final note, cutscenes on both.
I'm really glad to hear him say that though, because I thought I was going crazy. We swap between performance and resolution, and when performance mode is like bugging out in dense areas, it's only at like 40 frames, whereas the quality mode is at like 30. So it's like a 10 FPS difference, and it looks the same. It's just performance is way blurrier, but you get 10 FPS. So it's a real trade-off depending on what you want. But it definitely, like, the biggest problem with all of this is that they're relying so heavily on the upscaling. My real fear with the DLSS stuff and the frame generation and all that, it's amazing tech. However, when devs can just rely on upscaling to fix everything, I get worried. Because then, if the game isn't running well while they're developing it, and they're like, we'll just render it at 648p, and upscale it to hit 60. Like, don't get that twisted. The game is rendering at 648p. Not even 1080, not even 900, which is what like the Xbox One would do. It would render it at 900p. There was no AI upscaling or anything. It just rendered at 900p, and that's what it was. But now they're relying on this like AI upscaling stuff to improve it. And that's the only way they achieve this ray tracing like stuff that they're doing. I think games would be much better served if they just cut the ray tracing stuff except for quality mode, and they just made that like a special feature if you're willing to sacrifice all the frames, and then just bake everything else, because it's insane that the game in 2023 is rendering on current gen hardware at 648p. That to me is wild. If it was rendering at 1080 or 900 and then upscaling to 1440, okay, maybe it can manage that. But like it's rendering at GameCube resolutions. Okay, not quite GameCube, but it's rendering at like 360, Xbox 360 resolutions, sub 360, because 360 I think was 720p for most of its games. And then it's trying to upscale all the way to like 1440. And as a result, I mean, it looks like a blurry mess.
Both modes run in the same.
So is it performing better on Series X or PS5 right now? I downloaded the patch that they put out, I think yesterday. And I tried it. Frankly, for me, it doesn't really run noticeably better. But I wasn't running into a bunch of bugs. I was running into blurriness. Like you see in her hair right here. You see this? Like that weird artifacting is all over the place in my footage. And it makes it really hard to get like super into it. So I don't think, I mean, I've heard some people say that the game now isn't bugging out for them, and that's awesome. So they fixed something with the patch, but it's by no means fixed.
Resolution window with a 4K like image resolve and a 30 FPS performance cap.
GameCube was pretty high at the time. Most games ran at 800 by 600. I mean, if that's the case, this like Jedi Survivor often drops its resolution down to just above that, just above GameCube resolutions, and then it tries to AI upscale it, which AI upscaling's great. I'm not that impressed with FSR2, but like on NVIDIA stuff with the DLSS, I think it looks really good. DLSS 3 especially, and the frame generation is crazy. But these consoles can't do that. They can't do DLSS or any of that because it's AMD hardware. And as a result, you get the FSR2 stuff, which is better than nothing. It's better than if they just displayed 648p, I'm sure. But man, it makes the game look way crappier in comparison. Exactly. I hope he goes side by side and shows the performance mode to quality and just the difference between the resolutions, because it's tough, man. The performance mode actually drops into the low 30s at times. Like there's no point even using performance mode. It's weird. It is really weird. It's mildly frustrating, but at least the performance mode can go up to like 60, whereas the quality mode is like capped. It won't go above 30, I think. I'm 100% sure the reason is Denuvo DRM. Watch as Pirate strips Denuvo and performance is fixed. Maybe. I don't know. Did Digital Foundry find anything about Denuvo in this? Normally Denuvo isn't like that aggressive. It just seems like this game can't manage to render at modern resolutions. Even like last gen resolutions it can't handle. On PC, it's like a disaster unless you're using AI upscaling stuff. The 4090 is able to crank it at like 60 frames without FSR2 on, which is what I did in my PC video where I tried it on native resolutions at 1440 by 3440. And it ran pretty well at like 60, 70, but it drops down into the 30s and into the 20s at times.
How well?
Adam, I just realized this is live and I'm not watching a clip. Hey, what's up? Good to see you. Welcome. Yeah, chat's right there.
This works in practice is going to be a matter of personal taste and the display you have. With motion blur on in the resolution mode, I didn't find it to be too annoying.
I mean, this is resolution mode. I guess it's at 3x zoom.
Sitting a typical viewing distance from a large, slightly laggy VA LCD television. But the game does suffer from substantial artifacting, specifically
I mean, poor BD.
Around fine geometric edges and character silhouettes that kicks up basically any time there's movement. This gets worse in the performance mode, which struggles somewhat against its relatively low internal resolution. We're going to be seeing a lot of aggressive upsampling in use as this console generation progresses, but I do wish that the results were a little bit cleaner here. Series X fares about the same as PS5 in terms of image quality, and pixel counts come in at roughly the same figures as you might expect. We're still looking at heavy upsampling in both visual modes, with substantial artifacting and aliasing as a result. Let's look at performance, starting with Series X. In its resolution mode, the X does manage to hold a pretty consistent 30 FPS. Long stretches of gameplay run at a straight 30 without any real deviance. There's a one-off dropped frame sometimes, but we're mostly looking at a pretty decent 30 FPS update here. And Unreal Engine 4's excellent motion blur leaves the game looking pretty smooth in motion. However, there are moments where the game can drop pretty hard. Certain spots during gameplay and cinematics tend to chug badly, notably when large alpha effects are on screen. It's a bit annoying but not terribly frequent, and framerate drops in Jedi Survivor on all consoles are often accompanied by tearing in the top third of the screen, presumably a measure to improve input response, though the tear lines can be pretty distracting. The performance mode targets a 60 FPS update, and unfortunately, the results aren't great. In the opening level, performance tends to hover between 45 and 60 FPS in a sort of frame rate no man's land, with near constant tearing as a result. This is punctuated occasionally by larger frame time spikes as well. Subsequent naturalistic areas like Kobo tend to run with more consistent performance, though these also suffer from occasional drops. On a conventionally refreshed panel, I'm not a big fan, but VRR displays cope better with the uneven performance. The PS5 seems to perform similarly enough. Again, expect a relatively consistent resolution mode with some minor drops and bizarre trouble spots, and a performance mode that really struggles to reach 60 FPS in some areas. There's not much performance between the two consoles as far as I can tell, with both exhibiting similar drops in the same spots.
Man, it's just... I'm not a hardware guy. I'm not a software guy. I don't do coding. I don't know how graphics engines work. I'm a dummy. Okay. I'm a finance guy. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know any of this, but it is shameful that they can't manage this better. He took my thing. Red flag.